Hey, everybody, welcome to the Significant Coaching Podcast. I'm Coach Matt Rogers. I'm so glad to have you back again. I don't know what it is, but I keep interviewing these coaches that are knocking my socks off. It's amazing to me how many, what I would consider 10 out of 10 level coaches, gold standard coaches that I'd never met, that I never heard of before, that are out there doing amazing things, running programs, coaching, teaching, and evaluating. And today's coach is one of the best I've ever met. Greg Sheley from Lane Community College up in Oregon. He coaches in the Northwest Athletic Conference up there. And this guy is amazing. 32 years as the head coach at Lane. 7 at Butte College in California, 25 at Lane Community College. This record will blow you away. 789 wins and only 204 losses. That's an 82% winning percentage. Unheard of. 16 league and regional titles, 7 NWAC championship titles, 15 Final Four appearances, 21 consecutive postseason appearance, and he's gotten from 2002 to 2011. They had a nice stretch. They won 84 straight home games. Amazing. Coach Sheley has a fantastic story. It's in his DNA. It's in his blood to coach and teach and lead and mentor. And I'm so glad that he followed his heart into this career. What a great role model for all student athletes and kids. What a great role model for guys like me that are in the coaching world. So I was just really impressed with him. So this is going to be a good one. He's going to give you a lot. He is really humble and really modest, like most coaches are when I'm trying to get them to talk about themselves. But he tells such great stories about how he got to where he is. He doesn't cut any corners. He doesn't put his kids in bad situations. His kids are come to Lane to win, to get an education, and then to go somewhere else and continue to do great. And he prepares them for all that. So without further ado, please enjoy Greg Sheley. All right, Coach, we got to talk first about you being a Dodgers fan because I've got my Jackie Robinson Brooklyn hat on. So, what have you been a Dodgers fan since can you remember?
Yeah, literally my whole life. I don't know how it started. I think, I had an aunt and uncle that lived in Southern California, and we would visit them. That was the big vacation. I grew up with teachers, so there wasn't a whole lot of vacation time when we were young, but when we could visit family and just got to see them. Garvey, Say, Russell. That's what I remember the start being, and the Fernando
Absolutely.
mania. And I think that's where I got hooked, being able to sit in the bleachers back when they truly were bleachers.
That's right.
At Dodger Stadium was a lot of fun. So that was a great opportunity for me, and I just have really enjoyed baseball my entire life.
Well, I'm a huge Cubs fan, so when I hear Ron say, the Penguin was, at the heart of my youth, playing third base for the Cubs and that '84 team that had it and couldn't finish the deal. So
Right.
yeah, and you'll love this. This will mean a lot to you. When I was 13 years old, and I grew up in a town of 2,000 people, just tiny little town. And in our town, we had a photographer, and he took pictures for Sports Illustrated, all the major magazines, and he was just a great guy. I mean, he was just always around. He was at every high school game taking pictures. So anything I have from my high school career, it's because of Dave Bush. And Dave called my dad when I was 13 years old and just said, "Hey, I've got to go into Chicago and take some pictures for a couple of these golf tournaments, celebrity golf tournaments. And I'd like to take Matt and my friend Brad with me. Would you guys be okay with it?" And, my dad was like, "Yeah, bring them back alive and we're
Yeah.
happy. And, this was the 80s. And Dave took us in and we drove into this golf course, this really luxurious private golf course. And we walk into the course and there's this big tent behind the clubhouse. And we go in and sit down. And within 10 minutes, we're sitting at this table. They've got this huge lunch that, buffet lunch. Within 10 minutes, Lou Brock, Ernie Banks,
Oh.
Dr. J, and Steve Garvey sit at this big table with us, this big round table. So at 13 years old, I'm staring at all my idols, all the guys that I've been watching play and dreaming about, they're sitting there with me.
That's
so,
amazing.
Yeah, I have
a lot of
zero memories. I can't remember anything, past 25 or before 25, but
Right.
I remember that day like.
Yeah.
So as a Steve Garvey fan, I figured.
Yeah, no, that must have been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
childhood memories of your idols are amazing.
Yeah, they signed everything. And anything I had, baseball cards, news clippings, they signed everything. They were just the sweetest guys and the most caring guys that ever been around, and it was a lot of fun. So you've had this amazing career, and you were a great player. You played junior college, went to Chico State, had a great career. And I want to get into how you got into women's coaching, but where did your love of athletics and coaching, where did that come from?
I think it came from my childhood. My father was a junior high school. Back in those days, junior high, where I grew up, was 7th, 8th, 9th grade. So he was the athletic director at the junior high school.
Okay.
But he coached track and cross country. So even though I didn't end up pursuing those type of sports, I was around sports and athletics, I think, all my life. I was fortunate to grow up playing every sport that there was. And so I think I started with that affinity. And then, as you get older and you start realizing, hey, I want to keep doing this longer, I went the JUCO route, was able to play both baseball and basketball in JUCO, which really was the main reason why I went that route. I wasn't quite sure, geez, I don't want to give up either one of these. And so I had some great opportunities. And I think those first few years at JUCO really kind of solidified the fact that I'm like, okay, I got to stay in athletics somehow. Coaching seems to be the logical thing, get into teaching, coaching, and just be a high school coach and go back home and try to fill a legacy. And that's basically where it started.
It was in your DNA, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this about me, but I coached women at the University of Laverne for 3 years.
Oh, yeah.
And I loved it. I to this day, I tell anybody that asks me, because I coached men for a long, long time, and then I had 3 years coaching women. Anybody that asked me the difference, I said, coaching women was the best 3 years of my coaching career because they listen and they do it.
Yeah.
They just, we're boys. You're constantly massaging egos, and you're constantly trying to, kind of range cats in and get them focused. Girls, it was just every day I knew what I was going to get, and they were great. Now, I was probably a little too intense for them, and some would tell you I was their favorite coach, and some would tell you I was their worst coach they ever had just because of that. But how did you get your mind? You were a men's basketball player, you were a male athlete. How did you figure out that coaching the women was something that fit you?
Well, I got into it kind of randomly. After I finished playing at Chico State, I was kind of they weren't true grad assistants back in those days. I just kind of volunteered, helped out, was coaching a little bit we had a JV program then, was doing some of that, working camps, every summer.
Yeah.
And the local community college guy just calls me out of the blue and says, hey, how much are you getting paid over there at Chico State? And I said, nothing, I'm volunteering. He's like, I got $1,500 for you to come out and be my assistant. And, I was also trying to be the assistant at the local high school, which was where I played. And they had already had a staff set aside there. And so I come to the head coach at Chico State, who I played for, and I said, Puck, I got this opportunity. I really want to stay here and help you out, but they're going to give me some money if I head out that way. He goes, you should take it. And I'm like, wow, I didn't know how to handle that. Does that mean you suck as a coach and get the heck out of here? Or was he really saying, hey, this is a good opportunity for you. You should explore it. So I went ahead and got into that. And I think that career changing for me in the sense that I coached 1 year of junior college women as an assistant, then bounced back to the men. I was finishing up my student teaching at the time, so I wasn't able to continue to be the assistant at Butte College at that time. And so I went to Sierra College and was an assistant there as I was finishing up student teaching. And then all of a sudden, you get your teaching credential, it's job time. And so I was planning to go back to Butte College to be the assistant with the coach that I worked with. And literally 2 weeks into the school year, he steps aside, takes another job, and all of a sudden the AD's like, well, you want to be a head coach, huh? And yeah, Mike Liddell, he changed my career path and gave me an opportunity that not many people would do, given a young white guy, white male,
Yep.
in Northern California, an opportunity. I was young and I was, to coach women. And so it was interesting how that provided me an opportunity and then go from there. Mike had a lot of confidence in me that I didn't even have in myself. So it was a great opportunity, and I really, really appreciated that. And so then I was at Butte for 7 years, and that led to me coming to Lane.
And not just at Butte for 7 years, but an amazing run.
Yeah, we had some good years at Butte. I was really lucky. I had some really good players. Again, thinking back, you talked about, too intense. I didn't know any better. I didn't have a whole lot of mentors at that time. It
Right.
only been, and so I think back to how many games that we could have been better if I was a better coach, and probably would have been a better mentor to some players had I had a better understanding. So, but it was still what an opportunity that I was able to have, which then led to a career that I've been very fortunate with.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got 150 former players that would tell you the same thing. If he was a better coach, what we could have
Yes,
done.
exactly.
Tell me about, for you, what has been some of the joys that you've learned about yourself coaching women?
Man, I would agree with you. I think early on, just the ability for young women that want to be sponges. They really wanted to learn. They would do to their best of their ability what you asked of them to do, without a whole lot of asking why. And I think early on that probably was good for me because I don't know that I knew the whys. I think in the latter part of my career here, I've been better at being able to explain the whys and answer those questions, and also then in turn, advocate and really encourage these young women to be self-advocates and to ask reasons why. There's always time and place, but
Right.
just to open those lines of communication, and I think that has helped me become a much better coach.
Yeah. Yeah. I think whenever we're in a position to coach and we have the ability to empower young people to stand up for
Yes.
themselves and to think analytically and to think thoughtfully and learn how to express that, anytime we have the opportunity to help a teenager transition to an adult, it's why I do it. I live for those opportunities.
I agree. I think the empowerment piece is something that is, I think, again, through my career, it really, when I started figuring out how to do that better, I think
Right.
the relationships were much better. The team chemistry was much better. And it took me a while to figure that one out, unfortunately. So I'm glad that eventually I did.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice when you have people around you that are patient enough and they see your value and
Right.
they're willing to give you that time and runway, because
Yeah.
we all need it.
Yes.
Every coach I talk to, and I just got off we just did a Zoom with Mike DeGeorge, the new head coach at Cal Poly, and every coach I talk to has that same story that you had. You talked about Mike Liddell. Mine was Ray Shovlin and Rich Fanning that gave me a chance and mentored me and saw something in me that I probably didn't see in myself at
Right.
that
Yeah.
time. Now to be able to give that to kids, is that a big part of why you keep doing what you do?
Absolutely. And I think it's also, as my other role as the athletic director here at Lane, I think back to Mike Liddell when I make hires.
Yeah.
When young, inexperienced coaches come through the door, a lot of people, just look at experience and resumes. And I think I try not to. And I think that I've done a good job, or I've tried to do a good job of giving opportunities to others as well that might not have the experience, but they have the passion, they have the desire, they have the organizational skills. They just need that chance because, no one's going to get experience until they get experience, right? And so let's give them opportunities, especially at our level where it's high turnover rate anyways. And so I've taken, I think, the experience that someone gave me, and I tried to give back to that and empower others. And it's really empowered me, and I've really enjoyed that part of the job outside of the coaching. And obviously within the coaching, that has been a great opportunity.
There's just not enough of you in the world, because you and I kind of talked about this before we hopped on and started to record. How important is that coaches get coached?
Right.
And there's a lot of ADs out there that make the hire and just say, okay, that's your island, do it well. And then they don't have meetings of substance, and they don't have meetings of coaching and give them an orientation. How important is that for you to be that person for your coaches, and how do they handle that?
I think I didn't become the athletic director here till 2009. And so I had a pretty good coaching career, and then a couple good mentors here, coaching and administrative wise. And so I think when I took over, speaking of resume, I think I had a little bit of cachet, but it still took me a while to then understand how to be a mentor to multiple coaches, not just directly in my field of expertise, but be, time to kind of take a step back. I think that was a learning curve as well, but I've really enjoyed that process now. I mean, I have probably, at least once a month individual meetings with my coaches now, just generally, not even chatting about, hey, this is what, we need to do, but just talking in general about things, learning more about them and finding ways, trying to gain their trust, I think, and when you gain trust, I think that, they were giving me the benefit of the doubt because I've been here a while and I've had success as a coach. I've had success as an athletic director. So they give you that benefit of the doubt. But I still think you need to gain their trust, and doing that through those individual meetings instead of, just always telling them what to do. I think the advice goes longer. And I think that also then it makes you feel better when they call you or they stop in your office and they're like, hey, can I pick your brain about something? And you're like, oh, yeah, excellent. Because, you don't want to micromanage people. You want it, them to do the job, and you want them to do it. But also, as an administrator, you don't want to be having people feel like you're unapproachable. And like you said, that they're out on an island to where then all of a sudden they make a mistake. They're not reconciling their travel correctly, or those type of things. There's a lot of those things that you need to mentor as well. And, those are things that if we don't communicate effectively, I've found that early on, I didn't communicate very effectively with that. Then we ran into some problems. So I've really, really learned a lot from that. And I think that is then in turn, again, goes right back to the coaching piece, just that full circle of just mentoring and young people. It's awesome.
I probably already know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyways. You've had such an illustrious career. And Lane's done really well in a lot of the sports, and especially including women's basketball. What motivates you today? Has your motivations changed?
Yeah, it has. People have asked me this recently, coming off our second back-to-back and winning our 7th title, and COVID was that COVID year was a big reset for me. And I think I was kind of getting to my point in my career where I was starting to think, okay, it might be time to step aside. It might be time to just kind of ride off into the sunset. But all of a sudden COVID hits, and you just start really rethinking about, why are we doing this? Because all of a sudden it was like, you're just fighting every day to have the administration understand what you're doing and why you need to be on campus and why you need to be around these people, and that you can do it safely, and that it can still be productive, and that these young people need this outlet. Yes. And I needed it as well. And it just really changed my look on things. It just invigorated me. And man, I just thought, man, there's no way I'm quitting coaching. This interaction is just so vital to who I am and my fiber and my core. And it just, it really changed. It helped me a ton. And yeah, and it's motivated me.
I mean, there's only so much golf you can play. What are you going to do?
Right.
You might as well keep coaching until they carry you off. Right?
That's right.
That's kind of my mindset.
And then obviously having success too, I mean, you can't put that by, but being able to have more genuine feelings about what you're doing and just really increasing the interaction and the trust with your players, and then having that all then culminate with very successful seasons, just to see the looks on their faces when they achieve their goals. That, of course we're recruiting them and we're telling them that we're going to do that. But then when you do it, that's also another thing that is just, that from coaching is just amazing. And then even the administrative side, when you see other programs and see the looks on those kids' faces have success, it's really, it's just a great feeling, man. We're in I got the best job in the world, man. It's wonderful.
And you've created it. You've created the best job in the world for yourself. So it's amazing to me. I did my research on you. 32 years as a community college head coach, 16 league titles. So at least once every other year, you've won the league title.
Right.
21 consecutive postseason appearances, 8 30-win seasons. I mean, I can find 100 college coaches for you now that would cut off a finger just to have one 30-win season. You've had 8. This is very much a basketball coach question. What is the core of what you do that's allowed you to be this successful?
There's probably a few things. Right away, I think the fact that I've been fortunate enough to stay in one place for a long period of time, I think that continuity and that consistency at our level here in the Northwest, I think that has been a big deal. I think that I've been very fortunate to be surrounded with assistant coaches that have been able to stay with me for long periods of time. So there's continuity there.
Is that a huge value or what?
Oh, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. At our level, where head coaches turn over a ton, where I've been able to, have the ability to stay in one place, be a full-time employee, that has been huge. The assistant coach has been huge. And then I think that just over time, your core values, your core being is then absorbed, and your culture now embraces that. Winning is not everything, but when you're making the sacrifices that I personally make, that our players make, that our assistant coaches make, that our colleges makes to allow us to have these opportunities, that my family makes to allow me to have these opportunities, I think it's been amazing. And I think that we're able to effectively communicate that with our recruits, with our current players. And then when you build on something at a 2-year level where you can show that you are consistent for a long period of time, I think it draws attention that helps in recruiting.
Yeah. Well, here's what's amazing. This is what I've had an enormous amount of respect and admiration for junior college coaches, because as a 4-year coach for many, many years, I always assumed, okay, I'm bringing in this freshman. It's going to take me at least a year to teach them how to play man-to-man defense. It's going to take me a year to teach them how to run the floor and space the floor and get the ball out of their hands. And then my sophomore year, I'm going to have 3 years where I'm going to be able to really grow them. You don't have that.
No.
And to be able to do that with constant, you're probably bringing in 8 to 10 new kids every single year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that's what's amazing about the success you've had. So now I'm going to make you put your humility and your modesty on the shelf for a couple of minutes here. Tell me about what that practice looks like on every 5 days, and what you feel like has become the difference maker in winning your league and getting to the nationals. What do you feel like you're doing that's unique and special?
Well, I don't know that I'm doing anything unique or special, but we've been able to do it better than others. I think our attention to detail at our level, because of what you talked about, where literally we have 18 months to get them in and get them out. And,
right.
and then we need to get them to the next level. So really attention to detail early on with just the basic fundamentals. trying to speed up that learning curve is very, very difficult, but it's what we do, and we have to do it well. It's funny that you talk about spacing and defense. Yeah, absolutely. At our level in Oregon, just recently, they started a shot clock so that, kids within our region don't understand much more than zone defense. And so trying to teach them person to person and, running and jumping and tempo and spacing, all those things, you just have to do it. And you have to really build. I think when I was young and dumb, I spent way too much time trying to emphasize, one thing, and we're going to stick with this until we get it type of thing. Right. And through osmosis, through learning curves, through mentors, I think I've changed now to where, my practices are way more organized, and we're going to spend X amount of time on something and maybe come back to it later, but the next day, boom, we're hitting it again. And so I would say the attention to detail, and then obviously we've been fortunate to recruit, more players that are better than our opponents. And so that's the biggest deal. I mean, as a coach, when you have better players,
yep,
they make you look really, really good. So I think a combination of being able to recruit quality young women that buy into what we do, and then are willing to put up with the attention to detail. Nope, we got to do it again. We got to do it again. We got to do it again. But I think also, and I apologize for the lengthy answer, but then I think again, that willingness to communicate effectively as to why this needs to happen this way is something that we've done really well.
I don't think young coaches understand that you have to teach the why, especially now. Maybe you could get away with it a little bit more 20 years ago. Do what I tell you to do, and that's it. Right. If you're not explaining the why now, you're going to lose them. Do you agree with that?
I totally agree with that. I would agree back, young, you do it because I said so.
Right.
And then I would agree within the last 10 years, again, that empowerment, and it's reciprocal. You empower them, but then you have to accept that empowerment. And I think that has made them better players. It's made me a better coach. So I agree.
I talk to a lot of young coaches that'll call me or email me and just say, hey, Matt, I've been struggling. I'm trying to build my program. We're trying to do this or that. What are some advice you can give me on building my practices? For me, especially young basketball coaches, I say, figure out the 5 things that are most important to you and make those a huge part of your practices every day. For me, I remember my first college game, I played against this Hall of Fame coach at Hanover College. And I thought, I got my guys ready. We're ready to battle. Well, we lost that game by 50 points. That was my first game as a college coach. We lost by 50. And the next year, I must have watched that film from the game until playing them again a year later. I must have watched that film 50 times. And what I started to take from watching that film was they were just in better shape than we were. They were stronger. They blocked out every trip. Every guy was hitting somebody and blocking out. Our opportunities for offensive rebounds were almost terrible. They moved the ball. Nobody was ever holding the ball. So when I talk to coaches, I go, figure out what's really, really important to you, how you want to coach the game, and make sure that's a huge part of your practices every day. Don't let those things, even if it's 5 minutes of this and 5 minutes of that, make sure you're emphasizing. Do you have something like that? Do you have that kind of mindset?
Well, yes, absolutely. I do. I don't know that the number is 5.
Sure.
But right, whatever your arbitrary number is, and again, I've been fortunate to have a long career starting young and then kind of learning these things. But if I were to go back, I think that's good advice, because you need to figure out what it is that is important to you and that will help you win or be successful. A lot of things, equate winning to success, but that's not necessarily always the case. But I would agree, whatever those things are, whether that's 2 things or whatever, 5 things, 10 things, whatever your core ideas are, you've got to emphasize. And then now, like you said, explain why you think those things are valuable and why we need to be doing this and how this translates to game. I think that that's the biggest thing that I've done over the last 10 years is explaining why what we're doing in practice is going to translate to game speed. And then if it's not, then trying to explain to them why we need to continue and how we can make that translate to game.
I love it. I want to, recruitment is such a huge part of my professional life and my career. So I want to transition to recruitment because you are, whether you'll admit it or not, you've become a master recruiter. So what do you have to look for? Obviously you want great kids and you've talked about that. What are you looking for? Because it's a very specific young lady that's going to go to Oregon, going to go to a community college, going to pick a 2-year school instead of a 4-year school, going to come in and fit everything that you want them to be able to do quickly and learning curve and all those things. What is it that you're looking for when you're on the recruiting trail?
Well, you brought up a lot of things there, especially probably within the last 5 years, but definitely the 10. The recruiting at our level has changed so much because, it used to be, well, we'll talk to you at the beginning of your senior year, and they'd say, I'm going to go 4-year. And then you say, okay, well, we'll be here in February and March. And then sure enough, February, March would roll around, and then they'd start talking to you, and then they'd think, okay, this might be a good route in April. Things are completely all over the board now with recruiting services, the explosion of club and AAU and the exposure, which I think is really, really good. But we too are now having to adapt to communicating with kids earlier that summer, before their senior year, sometimes even in their junior year, just letting them know that, hey, I know that, JUCO's probably not, your first option, but if it does pan out, we'd like to be here. And then I pretty much recruit the best players that I can get,
Yeah.
At our level, we're not able to say, oh, I need a 5 and I got to have a point guard and I got to have this. Some years I had 5 point guards and we'll put them all on the floor,
Oh, that sounds like heaven to me. I didn't have a point guard last year at all in my system. So 5 sounds like heaven.
Yeah. So ideally, of course, as a coach, you'd like to have, some height, some length, some athleticism, and be able to fill all these spots, that on paper look great. And it just doesn't happen that way at our level. So I've kind of always had this philosophy, but I believe that it's way more relevant now. Is it's just getting the best players that you can get, spending as much time as you can getting to know them, which sometimes at our level can be really quick. All of a sudden, 2 weeks ago, you get this kid who thought they were going Division I, literally, and it's June now, and they're trying to figure things out. And so you're trying to let the parents know that you're a trustworthy person, that they can, that you can trust us with your daughter, that we will help instill their values that you have. We're going to help develop their skill. We're going to give them opportunity to play, and then hopefully use that to then go on to the next level. So there's not a real defined method. It's kind of all over the board, but it's basically in the masses at our level. We have to cast a huge net and then start figuring out, okay, yeah, would you consider community college? Would you consider Oregon? Would you consider Eugene, Oregon? All those types of things. And it is a much more intense and lengthy process than even 5-6 years ago. It's been my experience.
Yeah, it almost has to be anymore because you talk about trust. You want to trust your decision you're making, and it's so hard to do that when you see a kid play. You have a conversation, and you got to try and figure it out in a week. Do I want this kid, or is this kid going to be good for my program? You've got to get to know the parents. Are the parents going to be a problem? Is the kid going to be able to handle the academics? Are they going to go to class? Is there baggage there that you haven't, because you haven't seen her enough? So let's say you and I are sitting there at an AU tournament. We're in a gym. We're sitting on a court. What are the things that jump out at you when you're watching a young lady play? Are there certain things that you just like, okay, that's what I wanted to see, or that's what I wanted to hear?
Oh, I think there's just a ton. I mean, it's hard to put a finger on it. If I had to pick one, with the emergence of the 3-point line and how it affects positionless basketball now, that, over the 10 years, it's kind of started at the NBA and then it's kind of worked its way down. We really excel with shooters. We excel at developing shooters. And so that is easy to pick out. And that's something that, you don't have to be a 5'11", on the women's game, a 5'11", 6-foot wing. You could be a 5'1" wing. And if you can hit, 25 footers consistently, a lot of the 4 years are going to overlook you, but hey, you will have a successful career with us. And then
I'm with you, Coach.
yeah, a lot of those kids, then all of a sudden then the D2s and even D1s look and go, okay, well, we missed on this one. We need to relook here. So I'd say the ability to be a shot maker, not a shot taker. There's a ton of shot takers out there.
There are.
So that's something and then, this is probably cliche because even, all the coaches say this, but when you watch how they interact with their club coaches, their parents, are they appreciative of that opportunity? Because we're not at our level. It's not like we're going out and giving people full rides and paying for housing and stuff. We're giving them a little bit of investment, but they're having to then invest back. And so it's nice when you see that they appreciate those opportunities. And then last thing is how do they react when you let them know that you're a community college coach, you're not a 4-year coach? It's a big deal.
And, absolutely. Are they respecting you as a coach and a leader and someone that has something to offer them?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, we do have something to offer them, and we feel we have something amazing to offer them.
You do,
which is an opportunity right away. So, but the baggage, at our level, back to your previous comment about baggage, we have to take a lot of those opportunities. That's basically the life of a JUCO coach, is that second chance opportunity. And we spend a lot of time in the recruitment process talking about that. Some people are aware of baggage, even the student athlete, and some aren't. And so depending upon how aware they are of what kind of baggage they have, you have to address that. But I've been very fortunate. We've had a lot of kids that have been very successful in our program that their high school coaches have told me, Coach, you really want to be careful about this, because they don't want to steer me wrong. And I appreciate that. But also I'm like, I got to fill rosters. I got to take chances. And, this person can run and jump better than most of the other kids. So let's give them a second chance in here. And I'd rather them do that second chance with me than with somebody else. So
do you make that young lady aware of what you've been told about her, or do you go about that in a different way to say, this is character-wise, this is what I expect from you?
Right. I try to just spin it and in the process tell them this is our expectations, this is our culture, these are the things that when you join us that are expected of you, and we're going to hold you accountable. Your teammates are going to hold you accountable. Sometimes as you build up the trust and they're already in your program, sometimes a few months into the program or the school year, something will come up where they might say, well, gosh, Coach, somebody used to tell me this. And I'm like, well, you know what? They tried to steer us away too. And you have done a great job of proving them wrong.
That's awesome.
You never want to throw anybody under the bus for confiding in you. So it's a very touchy subject.
Love it.
You got to handle it delicately.
Yeah. You'll love this. I'm gonna brag on my girls at Laverne. We led the country in 3-point shooting in 2012, and we hit 26 threes at a game, Coach.
Excellent.
So I think we're tied now. I think somebody has tied us, but we had 7 games that year where we made over 23. So we're kindred spirits there.
We are
shooting the ball.
And if my memory serves me correctly, I think our record is 27. So
you beat it. So fantastic.
We are definitely kindred spirits.
Yes. That game blew me away. We just could not miss. And I want to go back to the size you talked about. That group of kids, my starting point guard was 5'1", my shooting guard was 5'2". She hit 9 threes that game at 5'2".
There you go.
So you're speaking my language.
Best shooter I've ever coached is 5'3.5", maybe 5'4" on her tippy toes. And
love it. Just love it.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit here. You've given me an amazing amount of time, and I really appreciate it. But my world is recruiting, and I'm going to put you on a stage, and there's 300 parents and student athletes in an auditorium. What's the advice you give to kids about recruiting? What did they need to know if they want to play for a Greg Sheley, if they want to play college basketball or college sports?
Yeah, I'll take the college basketball approach, just college sports. I that doing the research and developing a relationship with the prospective coaches and not afraid to ask any question to any coach. I know when we recruit, I focus on my program and what we can offer, and I don't talk about other programs, but I encourage the kids I recruit. I'm like, you should look into other programs because you need to figure out what is best for you. Obviously, I'm telling you it's us, but you have to buy into it. So I think the recruiting process is important that whether it's a single parent, multiple parents, split family, whoever the people are that are helping this, for my instance, a young woman make a decision on what they want to do with their future. I just think it's really important to try to gather as much information as possible. To me, no question is off limits because you're trying to educate yourself to make a really good decision that hopefully will affect you in a positive way as you move forward. So do your research, ask your questions, and I would say be leery of people that are telling you, oh, no, don't talk to others, just talk to us. And be leery of negative recruiting coaches too. We run into that all the time. And it's amazing how coaches think that talking negatively about another program makes you look better when it doesn't. And
No.
People still continue to do it. And it's like, man, so I love it when people start talking to me about, well, hey, this other coach said this about you. I'm like, wow, they must be in our office all the time. They know more about it than us.
Crazy. Yeah. And I told kids the same thing. And for me, I was a 4-year coach. I tell them, I don't want you for 1 year. I don't want you quitting in October because I didn't prepare you for how our school works or how our culture is or how hard our classroom is. I want you to know all that. So I want you to do your research. I want you to go visit some other schools. And if we're a good fit, I want you. But
absolutely,
you got to figure that out. I don't want to be fighting the whole time you're here trying to convince you to stay. I want you to buy in.
The worst feeling in the world for me is when somebody in, September or October, early that first year, they come into your office and they say, Coach, I didn't know about this. You never told me this, or they misunderstood something that you said. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, there's no way I would have said that. I somehow must not have communicated effectively to make sure that you're aware of X, Y, or Z. Fortunately, knock on wood, that doesn't happen very often, but it's the worst feeling in the world when somebody comes in with confusion about, okay, hey, but I thought you said this. And it's like, oh, so then obviously I didn't do a good job of finalizing every question for you. But fortunate that it doesn't happen very often, but those are the worst.
Yeah, I agree. Coach, such great advice. Your wisdom is fantastic. I'm so thankful I got to know you. And I say this all the time, but I started this podcast because I keep talking to families that don't understand the quality of coaching and learning that is out there at the small school level. Mm-hmm. And especially a school, the NWAC and how great a school is, and that consortium of schools you have out there. Every coach I've met from the NWAC is blowing my doors off. If I was an AD at a Division I program, I would be knocking on your door and saying, hey, come take a look at us. Come think about our program and coaching for us. Your experience is phenomenal. Your success is phenomenal, but your heart and your character and your integrity and how you go about your business is really the reason. It's obvious to me you've had so much success. So I'm really thankful that you're in the world. I'm so thankful that you decided to get into education and coaching, and I'm thankful for the time you gave me today.
Well, I appreciate those kind words, and I'm thankful of the opportunity just to talk basketball. It was fun to get to meet you and just learn more about you and what you're doing, and then just talk basketball and young people and how we can help them. It's very fortunate. So I appreciate you as well.
My pleasure, Coach. The pleasure was all mine, and I'm excited to have future conversations with you and talking athletics and talking coaching, and I know this won't be the last time we talk. So
that'd be great.
Yeah. Coach, good luck. I hope recruiting finishes up strong, and I know you guys will have another great year next year.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
There you have it. Coach Greg Sheley from Lane Community College up in Oregon. What a fantastic guy. Championship coach. Does it the right way. And if you're a family that's got a daughter who's a really good college basketball player and is looking for a really good high school player, I should say, that's looking for a college where someone's going to coach her, develop her, be a surrogate parent, care about her future, you're not going to find a better human being and a better coach than Greg Sheley. So really enjoyed that. Hope you guys did too. Remember, if you're liking these, it helps me a lot if you follow or subscribe so I know you're interested. If you're not enjoying these enough to follow or subscribe, don't be afraid to shoot me an email. Don't be afraid to leave me a voicemail and let me know how you're feeling about the conversations. Is there a coach out there that you know that you'd love for me to interview? Please let me know. I love getting referrals. I love meeting new coaches who are fantastic, and we'd love to have them on the podcast. You can follow me on all the social media platforms, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook. What am I forgetting? Twitter, Instagram, and I'm putting content out almost every day. Videos, reels. We just put out some great reels of Ryan Kerrigan, former NFL All-Pro for the Washington Commanders and now the assistant coach there. We've got a great reel out with the head women's volleyball coach at the University of Wisconsin-Platteville, Samantha Burkett. And they're all great. They're all going to help you with your recruitment needs. And finally, if you would like to meet with me, you're a family and you're looking to get help with college recruiting, go to coachmattrogers.com, schedule a 30-minute meeting with me. It's free. I'm going to strategize with you. I'm going to help you through your process. I'm going to answer your questions. So take advantage of me. I'd love to talk to you. If we're not a good fit long-term, you can tell me or I'll tell you, but typically when families schedule with me, we get something really good out of it, and I make sure you leave our conversation ready to rock and roll with your recruitment, even if you don't want to work with me long term. But check out my website, coachmattrogers.com, and you can find my blog and all of the podcasts there as well. But thank you for hanging out with me for 45 minutes today. Hope you enjoyed this, and I'm looking forward to talking to you next week. Thanks, everybody.